There's a movie back in the late 60s. It's on YouTube. It's free, called The Cross and the Switchblade. I
Oh, jeez.
challenge you to watch this movie.
You challenge me
It's
to
a
watch
real,
it.
Oh, boy.
it's a real life movie.
I watched The Cross and the Switchblade.
I don't know much of what's going on around here, but I do know that some of you are so blind that you're heading for a ditch and you don't even know it. I've seen you walk around like you own the world. You don't even know how much danger you're really in. Now, you can't live too long around here on luck, because somebody can put a knife in your back in the next minute.
I took you up on your challenge and I watched the movie.
It's a super old movie, cheesy, everything. I tried to warn you on that.
The cheesy I don't have a problem with. It was, late 60s, early 70s movie. I did not expect anything but what it was.
Okay. True story, by the way. 100% true story.
I don't deny that it's a true story. What the issue that I have is that it's the all right, so for decades, Christians and the right have been complaining about the left perpetuating propaganda, while at the same time they want to perpetuate their own propaganda. So it's like you want to talk out of both sides of your mouth, which is kind of what I have an issue with, especially in
the difference, to cut you off, not to cut you off, to cut you off.
No, go ahead, cut me off. I don't care.
The difference is, at least from my perspective, is the right to say something is fine. The left can say whatever they want. Non-Christians can say whatever they want. I don't care either way. What's going on, like the issue like I have right now is that there is, and I don't think, and I said this to a friend of mine who is also leans more left, like way more left than I do. She leans way more left than you do.
Okay.
Like she's extremely left. And I said, this is what I said. I said, when you come down to the everyday American, we don't care.
No, they don't.
You let me have my voice. I let you have yours.
Right.
Right now, what's going on is it's the propaganda that's being projected by the 1%, or even those, to do that, is they force it. Christians, at least there are Christians out there, like you were saying last week, there are those Christians out there that will sit there and they force it. Yes. And I think that is totally, completely, 100% wrong.
It
is
warms,
totally wrong.
It warms my heart so much to actually hear a Christian say that to me. I just want to let you know that. Like, I really, as much as we may disagree here, I appreciate you saying that. I really do. Because there's a lot of Christians out there who look down their nose at me. I'm a heathen. I need Jesus. I'm going to hell for X, Y, and Z. I'm a philanderer. Like, all of it. I've heard it all throughout my entire life. And it's what turns me off to the entire idea. So for you saying that right now, I will say my gratitude is through the roof right now. I appreciate hearing you say that. Okay?
No problem.
Good.
So this is how I look at it. Like, even when you look at the life of Jesus when he was on the earth, he never came and said, "You're going to hell. You're doing this." The only ones in the Bible that did that were the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Today, I call those crazy fanatics Christians. To me, if I have a hard time politically, well, I'm born again, and I don't do that. So there's the fanatic people who will do that, but there's fanatics in every camp.
Yes, I agree. 100% I agree with this.
So when I look at it, Jesus came and he accepted everybody. There's truth to what I believe. At least I believe there's truth to it. And I do believe that Jesus did say that the only way to the Father was through him. However, what he did tell us to do in Scripture is to live a life that testifies of who he is, not to force it down people's throat. So, for example, and in the last 3.5 years,
in this movie, Wilkinson wasn't forcing it down the throats of people who lived in the city. The movie was basically saying city life bad, Christian life good. which is what I kind of have
no.
a problem with. That's exactly
No,
what he
that's-
did throughout this movie.
But if you actually read, because that came from that movie, even though it says Crossing the Switchblade, there's a book by Nicky Cruz, who was the main. He was the main
Yeah.
the gang guy in
No,
the movie.
I looked
Played-
it up. I looked it up, and from the
Yeah,
and from,
he wrote a book called Run Baby Run. So the movie is actually compiled of both books, even though it's called Crossing the Switchblade. What was happening, and the only pushback that he got in that movie from actually saying anything was from the cops. The other gang members, the other people, they were actually saying they wanted to do this. He held, like at the end, he held a private rally and invited the gangs. And in the book, if you read it, for a week, nobody showed up. They offered them everything. They didn't force it. They invited them in, and then they came. Now that they came
that
to
should have
his
been in the
event,
movie. That should have been in the movie.
100%.
That should have been in the movie, because the way that the movie ends with, oh, it's the first night and everybody shows up and everything's hunky dory, it feels really forced.
Right.
That's why
Here's
that's primarily why I said it's propagandist. That's
Right.
one of the main reasons why, is because of the way that it ended. If it
Here's the
was
funny
actually
part is
was
that-
actually in the movie, that it was a week before people started showing up, and then people like one by one started trickling in or whatever, I wouldn't have the issues that I have with the film. But because
Right.
of the way that it ended, it's propagandist. It is.
Well,
I'm
I'll let you
sorry.
know. I think that was just the late 60s trying to take a book and
Yeah.
take two
Yes.
books and put together.
Yeah.
Because in the Cross and the Switchblade, it's actually the halfway point of the book. There's more of that, and there's a program today that you've probably heard of called Teen Challenge.
Mm-hmm. It's like there in the 90s.
Yeah, but Teen
Yeah.
Challenge has been around. David Wilkerson and Nicky Cruz, the guy who got saved at the end of the movie because he cut his hand
Mhm.
and he got saved.
Mm-hmm.
David Wilkerson, that story, Crossing the Switchblade, was the beginning of Teen Challenge. He created Teen Challenge through that.
Okay.
He didn't try to. He wasn't trying to. He just was like, felt led to go to New York. And the whole story actually starts with, he saw, at the beginning of the movie, you see them in a courtroom and you see a guy drawing a picture of the 7 kids that are in court.
Yep.
So this is one whether it's Christian, whether it's fiction, whether it's fact, whether it's not, I've never once seen a book to movie actually go over well.
It doesn't go over well.
Because in the book, he's actually reading Time magazine and he sees that picture in Time magazine, and he gets led to go to, he lives in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He gets
Yeah.
led to drive 350 miles for like 6 months. In the movie, it's like the same day, but
Yeah.
for 6 months, he's traveling back and forth,
Okay.
talking to people and building relationship and doing all this stuff. In the movie, at the beginning, when he gives the kid shoes,
Yep.
and there's the girl that follows him around. That's actually, the kid that follows him around is a guy, not a girl. And he gives the guy shoes like 5 months after getting to know him and sharing things with him. And there's a
Mhm.
whole, so the book just gives a whole lot more.
I believe
to
you.
it.
I believe you.
But for me, like even in the rally, it was an invite. They didn't have to go to the rally. So for me, propaganda is, I'm going to shove this down your throat, whether you are invited or not. Whether you want this or not, I'm shoving it down. 1984 is propaganda to me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. 1984
What you're
is
getting-
real. Yeah.
Like
that,
what you're getting
that
in
I
that
agree
story
with.
is propaganda.
But okay, the story that you're telling me from the book and like the actual events that happened and how it took him a lot of time to build up that trusted relationship with these people, don't really have a problem with. Pat Boone does not play that character that way. Pat Boone plays the white savior coming to save the city, which is that to me that's propaganda. I don't like that.
David Wilkerson was a timid timid man. When you're reading the book, he is terrified through the first, like he is terrified left and right of what's going to happen. He's afraid of.
He's not
He's
scared
afraid
at
of getting
all.
stabbed.
And I
He's afraid of
immediately
getting shot.
I immediately call BS when he like wanders into the clubhouse and he like gets in between the two gangs that are getting ready to fight. I'm like, there's no way that this. I'm sorry, this
So in the
pasty
book,
white
that did not
guy
happen.
from Pittsburgh is just gonna come to New York into the inner city and just interject himself into this gang war. It would never happen. I'm sorry.
That part was never in the book. What was in the book is what was in the story is when he's talking to Nicky Cruz for the first time. Nicky Cruz says, "I'm going to kill you right here," and he goes, "Go ahead, cut me up into 1,000 pieces, and every piece of me will still love you."
Yeah.
That is word for word David Wilkerson in his book.
Okay.
Those are his words.
Fine. I again, fine. I have no
Sorry.
problem with it, but I'm just saying you challenged me to watch the movie. I watched the movie, and I'm just getting back to you about how I felt about it.
I think that's awesome. I'm surprised that you even watched the movie.
I'm not. Listen. I don't know. And last week you said something. Oh, Will, I'm surprised you would recommend us watch this movie since you're so anti-religion. I don't know what Lee has told you. I'm not anti-religion. I'm anti that book. I think that book has a lot of problems. I think that book has caused a lot of world suffering. There is not a paragraph or sentence in the English language that you could say to convince me otherwise. That's the big problem with like organized religion that I have, is primarily that book. The idea of a group of people getting together and like praying to whatever God it is that they believe in, do whatever you want. I will be the first person on the front line to say that you have the right to believe whatever you want to believe, and I would fight for your right to do that. The same way that I would fight for anybody else's right to live their life, no matter what it is, how you want to live your life, so long as you're not negatively affecting somebody else. So I don't have a problem with religion. I have a problem with that book. I just want to make that clear. And again, I don't know what Lee's told you, but I'm sure he thinks that because of some of the things that I've said to him. But that's not entirely accurate. I'm not 100% against the idea of religion. It's mostly that book, but that's it.
What about that book? Obviously, the Bible.
Obviously, we're talking about the Bible. It's the blatant contradiction that it has on and of itself.
What do you mean?
You read the Old Testament, and it's very clear why that book was written. When you go back to Jerusalem 6,000 or 7,000 years ago, and you see what they were doing, wandering in and out of camps with every type of animal or every type of life or every type of inanimate object going, this is my rock, this is my horse, this is my cow, it is my God, you will obey it or I will kill you. It's very clear and obvious to me why the Old Testament was written. And it is a vengeful, wrathful God. And then all of a sudden, everything changes in the New Testament, and he's loving and caring and all over the place. And it's a contradiction on and of itself. That's number one. Number two problem that I have with that book is the validity of Christ and the divinity of. Was he divine or was he a man? Well, there are contradicting stories to both of those things in that book that I have a really big problem with, but you have a lot of and it's such a divide. Even within the Christian faith, it's a divide, which is a problem that I have. If the book is being sold and being pawned off as this thing was like, this will unite everybody, but it can't even unite people in the religion that it's supposed to be focused on, there's a problem. And Christians don't want to admit to it. They don't want to admit to it. They run from it. They defend it. And I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but okay, so last week when we got into the conversation and I said there's no point in having this argument because eventually you're going to come in at a standstill because something can't come from nothing. And both sides are going to have that argument. Well, that's another thing that Christians really don't want to talk about or focus on at all. And that's another problem that I have. And it all stems from that book. And another issue that I have, and this is probably the biggest one, is if the book wants to paint a picture of an omnipotent, omnibenevolent, all-knowing, all-seeing, all-powerful God, you're completely negating free will. And I have a really big problem with that.
So can I respond to all three of your
you
things
can
now?
respond to whatever you want to, but those are and if I ever read the book again, I'm sure I will come across a lot of other problems. And one last thing, and I'll move on.
Sure.
I've read the Bible. I've read a poorly transcribed copy of the Torah, and I've read the Quran. The Bible is without a doubt the most violent book I've ever read in my life. Without a doubt. There is more killing and bloodshed and needless death in the Bible than any other book I've read in my life. But it's love, and it's peace, and it's acceptance, and it's not. It's
So it's
not.
not. So it's not. So I'll say this. And so when you compare Old Testament to New Testament, the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament is obviously we look at Matthew starts off with the life of Christ, and it shows us the change that goes on. When you're looking at the Old Testament, yes, everyone believes that, everyone believes that God is love, but God is also just. He is also he is a vengeful God.
Yes.
Very
much so.
But there is
These are two different deities that book is talking about.
It's the same person. And so this is what happens though. Is to answer the first part, when you're looking at, there's bloodshed, there's that. Yes, there is that. The reason why sacrificing and the reason why all that stuff came to an end after Christ is because what happened is, here's an example. You have, let's say you and I are in court. We go to court. We killed somebody. We are on trial for killing somebody. So our penalty is death.
Okay.
So what happened is Jesus came after 4,000 years of judgment just being allowed. What happened was Jesus came and said, you know what? No more sacrifices. Because we all deserve this penalty of death, I'm going to actually take that upon myself, and I'm going to actually take on your penalty on myself. So that's why it says in Matthew that he actually took our sins on the cross.
Mm-hmm.
Then he rose. So that's why I said last week is Christianity is also the only religion where our God actually died for us versus having the requirement of us dying for them.
Okay, no problems. I'm on board with everything that you're saying. No problems.
So the time of judgment that happened in learning the law, learning what is supposed to happen, Jesus came, fulfilled that, and then it became now we're in a day of mercy. So we're actually in a day of mercy, which is why there was a flip. But when you look at even free will, one of the ways I've heard it said, and I really like this, God is in charge, but he's not in control. So it's like the president of the United States, let's just say he has total power. He is in charge of the country, but he's not in control of what we do as individuals. So God is in charge.
You cannot have an omnipotent God without him being in control. You can't have it both ways.
Except that he gave free will to us. You have, so if this was the case,
all knowing, all seeing, all powerful, but there is you can't have
because
choice.
here's the reason why he wants, this is the reason why he gave choice. Because he gave choice instead of saying he already has angels that worship him day and night. What he is saying is, you know what? I don't just want an entity that I am forcing them to worship me. I am giving them the choice to choose me or not choose me. That's why you have people who are Christians and people who are not. If it was not free will, we would not have the opportunity to make a decision. We would have to just do it. And we don't. We have the choice to make the decisions or not. Now, for example, even this conversation, like you were talking before about Christians who like propaganda and do all of that stuff. The only reason why right now I'm even having these conversations with you, I've never pushed it on you. I've never forced it on you. I've
No.
never tried to have, in
No.
fact, conversations came up naturally.
Yes.
But I feel bad for those Christians who are doing exactly what you said, because it makes me feel the same way. On the same case, just like you said last week when I said, you have to kill yourself to get 42 virgins, and you're like, that's kind of like one sect.
Yeah.
It's not all of them that believe that.
Yes.
Which is true. But when people think of the Muslim religion, what do they think of?
Well, here in the West, that's
That.
what they think of.
Right, but also when you're in the West, when they think of Christianity, they go to that same extreme that I did with that, and they do
Sure.
the same thing. There are a bunch of us that don't live that way.
Sure.
I'm
no,
not out
it
there.
goes both ways. It goes both ways. I never said it didn't. Okay.
Right, and there's a gentleman by the name of Sir Francis Assisi, and he's like, I don't know, he was from like 400 years ago, 300 years ago, a couple hundred years ago, whatever it was, and he said, when it comes to living the life, I'm paraphrasing now before I actually quote him, but he was talking about, living a life according to the scripture. And he says, at all times preach the gospel, and when necessary, use words. What he's saying is our lifestyle should portray something different than what the average person lives. Like, I don't swear. That's just one aspect of it.
Mhm.
Jesus came in, and when you look at the New Testament, there's all these Pharisees that lived according to what the Old Testament was believing. And they had the same argument you have right now. They're like, but this is what the law is, and this is what you're saying. It contradicts itself. And Jesus was like, but it doesn't, because what he is saying now is he's looking at the heart. So he's saying, instead of eye for an eye, which is what the Old Testament taught, he said, turn the other cheek. So when someone does something evil against you, do nice to them. When they ask you to go, if they ask you to go 1 mile with them, walk 2. If they ask you for your shirt, give them a jacket. Go over and above for the people, but live that lifestyle. Don't just talk it. And a lot of people today, at least in the West, at least in America, they talk a good talk, and it comes across as propaganda, and it comes across as forceful. And the reason is because the majority of those people who are talking that are not living the actual lifestyle.
No, they're not.
Right.
No, they're not.
You see a difference in how I talk and handle myself with you around this. I live that lifestyle. I don't force it on you. I don't press it on you, and I'm not going to ever do that. And if you never bring this up again, I'll never force it.
I'll bring it up again, because I think that the conversation is fascinating, and the subject it intrigues me to know when. You have no idea. Like, it's wild. It's wild to me. But no, I basically stand by everything that I said. I understand where you're coming from. I don't ever feel like I don't understand where you're coming from. I do. I just completely disagree. But it is what it is, and it's whatever.
Well, here's the truth of it all. Is at least the truth to me, I believe is truth, is, like I said, Jesus died on the cross, and 3 days later he rose again. Easter Sunday.
Right.
Good Friday, he was killed. Easter Sunday, he rose again. The cool news is even though we are all sinners, every single one of us, including myself, like you said last week, that we have people that should hate us for the things that we do.
Yeah.
There is somebody in our past that hates us for something that we did.
Absolutely.
And there is a God in our life that has the freedom to despise and hate us for everything that we have done to him. And yet the truth is that he loves each and every single one of us for who we are. And that is a concept that even a lot of Christians have a hard time understanding, because when we look at ourselves and we go, I'm this, I'm that, I'm a jerk, I'm this, I've done that. How could he even begin to love me? We are accepted for who we are regardless. And one of the examples that Jesus used was, he was talking to one of the Pharisees, was he didn't come to condemn the world, but to save it. And that the healthy don't need a doctor, but the sick do. Like soap is needed in the world today to clean people because we get dirty.
Yeah.
Jesus came to save the world from sin because we are all sinful people. And there's an invitation, and that's the biggest difference, like between, at least for me, that I believe between Christianity and other religions, is there is an invitation to come and follow, versus a lot of religions will, you grow up in it, therefore you have to follow it by a religious, do the right thing. Christianity doesn't do that. There's an invitation to come and be a part of something, be a part of the family. And it's an invitation, and that invitation is open to everybody. We all just have the opportunity and the choice to choose it or not. But, take offense to this or not, but you do have somebody in your corner that is always thinking about you and, cares about you. So
Okay.
I'm one of those people. So
Thank you very much.
So
I appreciate
Lee has
that.
always told me, he's like, when you get sentimental with Will, he like shuts down. And I'm like, I don't care. Let him shut down. I'll do it. I told him, I said, I think it's because it's you.
Yeah, it's because it's him.
I think it's 'cause
exactly.
it's because of the way that he says something. I'm like, you're probably saying it in a way that's like, it would shut me down too.
Probably. Because he can.
So
He can. He can get.
he's
preachy.
short in how he talks. He's super short in how he talks.
He's
like,
short in
has a
how he
point.
talks. He's short in how he talks, but he can get a bit preachy at times.
Well, he gets that way because he makes a point, and there's this almost like unspoken expectation that when he makes this point, that the half an hour point prior to that he didn't make, you're supposed to get. I don't know if you've ever noticed that.
No, I've noticed different things with him. Like when Lee tells you a story, the story changes like 15 times before you actually get to the end. So, Will, I woke up this morning and I was doing X, Y, and Z. And then when I got to work and it's like, whoa, wait a minute. X, Y, and Z, you mean blah, blah, blah. Well, no, I didn't mean it like that. I more meant it like A, B, and C. And I'm like, all right, so you mean it like this. Well, no. I actually meant like somewhere more in the middle. Like you just don't understand. You just don't understand anyways. And then he'll move on and it's like, okay, what are we talking about? Wait a minute. Hold on.
That's because he's trying. That's because that's not even part of his story. The story is this over here.
Yes.
And he doesn't know how to actually lead.
He has no idea.
This. So either A, he just says this, and you're left with, where did that come from? Like when he like.
And to his credit,
when he does his dad jokes in the middle of a podcast,
they're way off.
Nowhere.
They're way off. They're way off. What are you doing?
He finds a way to like bring something in, and you're like, where did that like? What do you? So even with this conversation, I could have easily tried to find ways to bring things into the conversation.
Of course.
And then to you, it would have come across as preachy and propaganda.
Probably. Not gonna lie about that.
I never.
What and
but I waited until I waited until I've shared my thoughts. I've shared my, my beliefs, not to you, but I've shared them through. Here's these are my morals. This is the morality I live under. These are the convictions I live by, and then through just naturally happening, conversation happened, and you don't feel like I'm being preachy to you.
Not at all. When he tells you, oh, when you get sentimental with Will, he shuts down. To his credit, he's not entirely wrong. Don't know if you've noticed, I'm not a people person. I don't like a lot of people. I don't like a lot of people in my circle or in my life at all. I'm incredibly introverted. I'm
surprised I was even let into this lifelong.
No, you're fine. You're fine. But what he means is this: like there was a period of time where he and I would hang out once a weekend a month, or a couple of weekends out of a month. We would hang out with a bunch of his friends, a couple of drinks here and there, and him and I would get together and we would watch movies and blah 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 and have a good time. When I got home, he wouldn't hear from me for days, if not weeks.
That's because you were recharging. your
Exactly.
batteries.
Yes, I'm recharging. I need to reset. I just had a weekend in a bombardment of a bunch of people that I probably didn't want to be around. You know, in the moment it's fun, but like after I get home,
Right.
it's exhausting, and it's just like, ugh. I need to just stop and like shut everything off, and like he doesn't
I'm
have that.
surprised because
He's more extroverted. He's
He's not.
he
Not anymore. Not
Trust me.
anymore.
No, that part of him is never going to die. He is incredibly. He may say he's introverted. He's not. You get him around a group of people, he's all over the
he's
place. He's got the
He
gift.
just
of,
likes to be the center of attention.
yes, he's got the gift of gab. He got to go talk to this person. Got to go talk to that person. Got to be on that side of the room. Like me and him will be hanging out. He's the only one there that I know, and he's talking to everybody else except me. And I'm like, well, I guess this is just my lot in life now. And he mingles. He has to mingle around with people. He is very extroverted. I'm not. I'm way more introverted than he is, and I'm kind of closed off. I don't like a lot of people. That's kind of
Well,
generally.
that's why I was saying even 4 years ago. Has it been?
Yeah,
Gosh, it's been 4 years since we started this, hasn't it?
yeah, somewhere around there.
I'm
sure.
surprised. I wasn't surprised like you guys letting me in for like a podcast, but then when it was like, oh, we like the three of you guys, I was like, because this has been like a dream of mine since I was like 13. Even if this wasn't online and we just the three of us chatting about movies and we just did it for ourselves,
Yeah.
I still wouldn't care. It
Yeah.
would still be super fun.
Yeah, I mean, I have
Um,
hopes and dreams of making it big and making money, but if we never draw a dime, I don't care. I want to do this for a long time.
Right.
So
I'm the same way. If it's just our pastime, then it's my it's
I'm
this-
fine with that. I'm fine with that. And
so.
I was gonna go.
Well,
somewhere
listen,
else.
to throw it out there, if you ever have any more questions, even though you disagree with them, feel free to ask. I will.
I really don't.
Even for me, no. Even if you want to get not questions like, "Hey, I don't understand it," but you just want to get my point of view. I'm not gonna.
All right, I got
I'm not gonna
one.
push it
I
unless
got
you
one
ask.
big one. I got one big one, and this is gonna give me
Go
an
for it.
incredible amount of insight into how you think and how you view this. It's yeah. Okay. Do you believe in the virgin birth?
Yes.
Oh no, really?
So this is what. This
I'm
goes back to
sorry,
other
but
que-
you
this-
seem. If this comes off as
I mean-
insulting, I apologize. But you seem so much smarter than that. You really
Let me
do.
sh- This is going to answer your question before that you're talking about the whole dichotomy of him being man and versus him being divine.
Yes.
So
And by
when
the
you go
way,
back
I am one of those people that believes that Jesus' divinity was sanctioned by a court, because it was.
by which court?
Oh my God, I forget the name of it. Was it a
So
court or was
this
it
is-
a council? It was either a court or it was a council.
So here's the
And there was
So
like
here's the
there was a
two-
big argument about it like 200 years ago or something like that over in Europe. And there was, oh my God, I completely forget. I forget the
I don't
name
know
of it.
about that story, but here's what I do is when you read the birth of Christ and you read about Mary and Joseph and you see what happened. Joseph they were engaged to get married, and an angel came and told Mary that she is going to give birth to the Son of God. And it was prophesied through a prophet Elijah some 400-600 years earlier. And it said that God himself came down and planted his seed inside Mary. Joseph found out and was on the verge of divorcing, of not marrying her, of just leaving her to protect her. But an angel came to Joseph and said, don't worry, she is giving birth to the Son of God. So it's just like you are your mom and part your dad DNA wise. When Jesus was married, he had the DNA of a human and the DNA of God, which is why he was called the Son of God and the Son of Man. God came down in the form of flesh, and then when he got baptized into his ministry by John the Baptist, the Holy Spirit actually came down and actually proclaimed him as his son for all to see and actually sent him on through his ministry at that point. So that is where his divinity comes from, is he is all man and he is all God, all at the same time. And he's the only one in history that could actually carry both titles.
Which is fine for a belief, which is perfectly fine for a belief. I got no problem with that. I wasn't asking, as a man, you're not going to sit there and tell me that Joseph no, I don't buy it. As simply as a man. Simply as a man. Now you're at, because this is the way my mind works. You're asking me to ignore autonomy. You're asking me to ignore biology. You're asking me to ignore basic principles in the fabric of life if I'm going to accept the virgin birth, which I don't. I do not buy the virgin birth at all. And most of it comes from me living as a man. I know how men think. I know how men operate. Prostitution is the oldest profession in the world for a reason. I'm not calling Mary a prostitute, but I'm saying it's the oldest profession in the world for a reason, because man is gonna man and human is gonna human. That's it's logic to me. I can't. Maybe that's the big thing with me. I cannot separate my brain from logic or rationale. You know what? Okay, I've pitched something like this before. I'm going to give you a pitch right now, and I want you to tell me how you feel about it. And if it's just you and me that do it, it's just you and me that do it. The television show Lost was a fantastic for more than one reason. It is a show that is a meditation on faith, which is what we're talking about right now, and community and family and hope and optimism and all of those wonderful things, despite the dire situation these characters find themselves in, stranded on a desert island. That's primarily what the show is about, and it does a really good job of giving you that feel-good feeling.
Okay.
But the writing is lacking, and the spiritual and the biblical context really isn't there for you to like sink your teeth into when it comes to talking about things like this. Damon Lindelof was the showrunner on Lost, and he worked on another show for HBO called The Leftovers. Now, it's not gratuitous, over-the-top, usual HBO. It's very much subdued, but it's not an easy watch. If Lost was a meditation on hope and optimism and community, The Leftovers is a meditation on grief. The basic premise is 2% of the world's population disappear. Poof, gone. No explanation, you're never going to get an answer. It just is a thing that happened. And the entire show, you're wrestling with that, watching these characters wrestle with the fact that 2% of the world vanished into thin air. And they're all struggling, they're all going through this, and every plot point, every event, every moment you're asking yourself, can I explain this away through logic and reason, or is there something higher than man at play here that I have to take into consideration? When I was watching the show, I was going through the throes of depression. My job situation wasn't great. Me and the girl, we were on our way out, and my grandfather was dying. So I'm watching this show, watching all of these people live their miserable lives, and I'm thinking, this show was made for me. It spoke to me. But I also had like this arrogance about me where I was convinced. I'm like, I'm going to go through this show and I'm going to be able to explain everything because I don't deal with any of this fake crap mumbo jumbo. And for the first season and towards the end of the second season, I was successful until I got to one episode, and there was one thing in this one episode that I could not explain. And I had to go back and I had to watch everything over again, and it completely changed my perspective on a lot. It's probably the closest thing to a spiritual experience I've ever had in my life, was this show. It's not easy. It's a rough watch. It's not always happy. But if this is the conversation that interests you, and if you want to do something like that further down the line, I would not be opposed to it. And I would get a kick out of it.
How many seasons is it?
It's only 3. It's only 3, 10 episodes per season. It's short. But it's so well done. It's so well written. And
would you want to do it like
if you and I are having, I'm just saying, if you and I are having a good time doing this, I think we would have a good time doing that and like
Right.
kind of ushering that kind of topic into this. I don't know if Lee would be on board, but it like once we wrap up everything like with Stranger Things, if you want to give it a shot, I wouldn't be opposed. It would be the one show that I would recommend that we do. If I don't know, it's just I'm throwing it out there. Like I said, it's HBO, but
check it out.
it's not HBO. It's HBO, but it's
Right.
not HBO. It's not gratuitous. It's not over the top. It's language but it's not way over the top. And there's a
Right.
lot. There is so much like biblical subtext to everything that happens on the show. It is incredible. It's the closest thing to Breaking Bad I've seen since Breaking Bad.
Really?
It is up there. It's a tier below. It has to be. If Breaking Bad is A+, The Leftovers to me is an A. It is up there. And if you and I are having, I'm just saying, if you and I are having a good time talking like this, and we really don't have anything like to back us up or anything to like ground us with it, I think that would be an amazing thing to revisit. That's just me. I threw it out there. If you want to, check out the pilot and tell me how you feel, yeah. But yeah, it was.
Yeah, I'll look into it because that does sound interesting.
It's the closest thing. It's the closest thing to a religious experience I've ever had. And like I said, I got to one episode. It was just one episode in the second season where one thing happened, and I was like, I can't explain this. I cannot explain
what it
this.
is.
I'm
Do
not.
not tell me what it is.
I'm not.
Okay,
I won't.
good.
I cannot explain this. I cannot explain this. I'm going back. I'm going back to the beginning, and I'm rewatching this because I have to be able to explain this. I was so full of myself and so arrogant, and I did, and like I ruined it because like I started picking up on other things. Like, wow, okay, I can't explain this. I can't explain that either. I was completely full of myself. My entire world is upside down right now. I was gone. It was rough.
Let's even if it's just you and me, we'll do it Breaking Bad style, where we'll just
Sure.
like watch a couple episodes and just
Sure.
talk about it, not go through it.
Yeah,
but-
yeah, fine, absolutely. But anyways, let's
Cool.
we're gonna
let's get into Rebel Moon.
Rebel Moon. All right.